I never expected Christmas dinner to turn into a nightmare, but as I walked through my son's front door, everything felt different. My heart sank as soon as I saw the look in his eyes. What was supposed to be a joyful evening quickly spiraled into something I could never have imagined. My son kicked me out just like that because of his fiancée. But what happened next? The shocking twist would change everything I thought I knew about family. And about loyalty. My name is Linda. This my story of how my son kicked me out during Christmas dinner for his fiancée. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I remember walking through the door of my son's house that evening, expecting the warm embrace of family, the laughter, and the comfort of being with the people I loved. It was Christmas Eve in Charleston, South Carolina, and everything was decorated perfectly, just like I imagined it would be. The aroma of roasted turkey and spiced cider filled the air, the trees sparkled with colorful lights, and the soft sound of Christmas carols drifted through the living room. James, my son, was standing near the fireplace, smiling at me as I entered. But something in his smile made my heart sink. It didn't have the same warmth I was used to seeing. I had been his world for so long, and I thought this holiday would be no different. But when I glanced at his fiancée, Rachel, standing beside him, I immediately felt something was off. Her smile seemed too practiced, her eyes cold. I shook off the feeling, telling myself it was just my imagination. I walked over to James and wrapped him in a hug. His embrace was stiff, too stiff. He pulled away quickly, almost as though he was in a rush. What's going on? I couldn't shake the question. We settled at the dinner table, and my mind raced as I watched the two of them interact. Rachel was being polite, but her tone was clipped, her words laced with subtle judgment. I could feel the tension between us, thick enough to cut through. The entire evening felt forced, like we were all going through the motions, pretending everything was fine. But as much as I tried to ignore it, I could tell something was wrong. James was quiet, unusually quiet. Normally, he would have been laughing, telling stories from his childhood, sharing the memories that made us laugh until our stomachs ached. But tonight, he barely spoke. Instead, he kept looking at Rachel, as though waiting for some kind of approval. My heart clenched. The bond we had, the closeness that once defined our relationship, was slipping through my fingers like sand. It was Rachel who finally broke the silence. She looked at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and said, "Linda, I'm so glad you could join us. I'm sure you'll be happy to know that, James, and I have decided on the final details for the wedding. We'd love for you to help us with the budget. Your input would mean a lot to us." I felt my stomach twist. Budget? Was this what this was all about? She wasn't asking me to share in the joy of their union. She was asking for money, and not just any amount, but a sum I couldn't possibly afford. My heart raced. Was this what the night was really about? I gave a tight smile and said, "I'm happy to help in any way I can, Rachel, but I'm afraid I'm not in a position to contribute financially right now. You know how tight things are for me." Rachel's eyes narrowed ever so slightly, and she leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Well, Linda, that's a bit of a problem. James and I were really hoping you would come through. I'm sure you understand the importance of family support, especially when it comes to weddings. We need all the help we can get." The subtle pressure in her tone made my blood run cold. It was a clear ultimatum, and I knew it. Help us financially, or don't bother coming to future family events. Simple as that. I tried to keep my voice steady. "I understand, Rachel, but I'm afraid I can't offer what you're asking for." The words tasted bitter as they left my mouth. I hated feeling this way. I hated how Rachel had made me feel like I wasn't enough. I was his mother. Didn't that count for something? Rachel smiled again, but it was all too clear now that the smile didn't mean anything good. She turned to James, who had been silently observing the exchange, his face unreadable. She said, "Well, that's too bad. I guess we'll have to rethink the guest list. Family is important, but so is supporting us when we ask for it." My stomach churned. I knew that tone, Rachel was not playing games. And as I looked at James, I saw a flicker of discomfort in his eyes, but he didn't speak up. He didn't defend me, didn't say anything at all. Instead, he just nodded. The realization hit me like a slap in the face. My son was choosing her. He was allowing her to take control, to drive a wedge between us. The room felt smaller, suffocating. I looked around at the other guests. family, friends, no one seemed to notice the shift in the air. They continued eating, chatting, laughing, but I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of this betrayal. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor as I excused myself from the table. I needed air. I needed to clear my head. Was this really happening? Was my son, the boy I raised with so much love, really siding with her? I walked outside into the cold night, the brisk air hitting my face as I tried to steady myself. How did I get here? The pain of the situation weighed heavy on my chest. I had never felt so alone in my life. I stood in the driveway for what felt like an eternity, staring at the empty street, trying to calm the whirlwind of emotions. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, expecting it to be James, but it was Rachel. "Are you okay, Linda?" she asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I tried to force a smile. "I'm fine, Rachel." She stepped closer, her eyes cold. "You know, I really thought you'd be more understanding, but I guess some people are just too proud to ask for help. You don't want to lose out on being part of our special day, do you?" It hit me then, the true nature of Rachel's manipulations. She wasn't just asking for money, she was isolating me, pushing me out, trying to erase me from James's life. And my son, he was allowing it to happen. My heart shattered. I turned away from her, my voice shaking with emotion as I said, "I think I've had enough of this. I'll leave, Rachel. You've made your point." She watched me walk away, and I could feel her eyes boring into my back. I wasn't sure what hurt more, her words or the fact that my son hadn't said a word in my defense. As I drove away, the weight of it all settled in. This wasn't just a misunderstanding or a minor disagreement. It was a turning point, and I knew it. My son had made his choice, and I couldn't bear the thought of what that meant for our future. But what I didn't know, what neither Rachel nor James realized, was that this was only the beginning. I wasn't going to back down, not this time. What was I going to do next? How far would I go to protect my family, and would James ever realize the mistake he made? I couldn't sleep that night. The cold of the December evening seemed to seep into my bones as I sat in the dim light of my living room, the weight of what happened at James's house pressing down on me. I kept replaying the moment over and over in my head, Rachel's ultimatum, my son's silence, the betrayal in his eyes. How could he stand by and let her treat me like that? It wasn't just the demand for money, which was insulting enough, but the fact that my son didn't even defend me. How could he? I had raised him. I had sacrificed so much for him. And yet, he'd chosen to back her up over me. It felt like I was being erased, like I was no longer part of the family. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I could ever feel the same way about James again. Not after the way he acted. The next morning, I couldn't face it. I didn't want to go back to James's house, to that uncomfortable tension, to that icy atmosphere. But I knew I had to. He was my son, and despite everything, I loved him. I needed answers. I got in my car and drove. The streets of Charleston seemed quieter that morning, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I drove by James's house, but I didn't stop. Instead, I drove to our park. The one where James and I had spent hours playing when he was a little boy, running through the grass, laughing as I chased him. Those memories were like a balm to my aching heart, but today they only made it worse. I sat on a bench by the lake, trying to calm the storm inside me. The cool breeze brushed against my face, but it didn't soothe me. I kept thinking about Rachel's words. "If you don't help us financially, don't bother coming to our wedding, or Christmas next year." It was as though Rachel had drawn a line in the sand, and my son was standing on the other side, completely unaware of the damage his decision was causing. He was in love, I understood that, but why couldn't he see what was right in front of him? Rachel was controlling, manipulative, and selfish. I didn't want to be the one to break it to him, but if I didn't, who would? I wiped away the tears that had started to form, feeling the weight of the situation settling on me. I knew I had to do something. I had to find a way to stand my ground. I wasn't going to let Rachel walk all over me. But the question was, how? I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Maggie, the person who had reached out to me the night before. She was someone who had known James when he was younger, someone who had seen his fiancée in a different light. I needed all the information I could get, especially if it meant I could expose Rachel for who she really was. Maggie had warned me that Rachel wasn't the woman I thought she was, and I wanted to know everything. Minutes later, my phone buzzed with a reply. "We need to talk. Meet me at the cafe by the old bookstore in an hour. I have something to show you." I didn't hesitate. I got in my car and drove to the cafe. Maggie was already sitting at a corner booth, her eyes scanning the door as if she was waiting for someone, or perhaps just waiting for me. When I walked in, she looked up and waved me over. She didn't smile, but her eyes were filled with a mix of concern and determination. "Linda, sit down," Maggie said, her voice low. "I have some things you need to know about Rachel, things you won't believe." I sat down across from her, my heart racing. What could she possibly have to say that would shock me more than what had already happened? "I've known Rachel for years," Maggie continued, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. "Before she started dating James, she was involved with another man, one who had money, a lot of money. She's always been about securing her future, Linda, no matter who she has to step on to get there." I felt my chest tighten. My mind was reeling. "Are you telling me she's been using James?" Maggie nodded, her expression grave. "I'm telling you that Rachel has a pattern. She manipulates people to get what she wants. She's done it before and she's doing it now. She's got James right where she wants him. But here's the thing you don't know." I leaned in, hanging on every word. "What's that?" "She's been looking for ways to control you too, Linda. And not just you, everyone. She doesn't want James to have any ties to his past, especially not to you. You're a threat to her control. That's why she's doing everything she can to push you out." My blood ran cold. Rachel had planned this from the start. She wasn't just looking for money, she was trying to separate me from James, trying to rewrite the family dynamics to fit her own narrative. And I had let her. No more. I stood up suddenly, my hands shaking. "What else do you know?" Maggie hesitated before pulling out a small folder from her bag. She slid it across the table toward me. "You need to see this. I've been digging into Rachel's past, and I found something that might just change everything." I opened the folder, and my heart sank. Inside were photos of Rachel with a man I'd never seen before. And as I flipped through the papers, I found legal documents, court records, showing that Rachel had been involved in several lawsuits, all of which centered around money. Money that she had claimed from men she had manipulated into marriage proposals. I could feel the walls closing in on me as I read through the papers. It wasn't just about James anymore. It was about me too. Rachel had carefully crafted a plan to wedge herself into James's life and systematically tear apart any relationships that could stand in her way. And that included me. I slammed the folder shut, my hands shaking with rage. "I can't believe this. How did I not see it?" "You wanted to believe in her," Maggie said quietly, her voice sympathetic but firm. "But now you know the truth. Rachel's dangerous, Linda. And if you don't act soon, she'll have James all to herself and you'll be a distant memory." I felt a surge of determination. Maggie was right. I had been blind, but not anymore. I wasn't going to sit by and let Rachel take everything I had worked so hard for, especially not my relationship with James. I had to confront her, but I wasn't going in without a plan. I left the cafe with a renewed sense of purpose. Rachel's days of controlling my son and my family were over. I had the proof, and I was going to make sure James saw it. But what would he think? And would it be too late to save our relationship? The clock was ticking, and Rachel wouldn't go down without a fight. The following days felt like a blur. My mind was spinning with everything I had learned from Maggie. I couldn't shake the image of those court records, Rachel's manipulative history laid out before me like a cold, hard truth. The woman I had once welcomed into my family with open arms wasn't just after money. She was after power, control over James, over everything I had worked so hard for. I thought I could face her, expose the lies, and take back my place in my son's life. But every time I thought about confronting James, a knot would form in my stomach. Could I really destroy the picture-perfect future he seemed to have with Rachel? Could I tear apart the life he'd chosen to build with her? My phone buzzed in my hand, snapping me out of my thoughts. I glanced at the screen. It was James. My heart skipped a beat. He hadn't reached out to me since Christmas night, and that phone call. It was a sign, right? I hesitated, my finger hovering over the answer button. What would I say? How could I explain everything to him without losing him forever? With a deep breath, I answered, "Hello." "Mom," James's voice cracked, sounding smaller than I had ever heard it. "Can we talk? I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I need to hear from you." I swallowed hard, so he's been thinking about it. Was this the moment? Could I finally reach him? I was scared, terrified even, but I had to try. "I'm listening, James," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. There was a long pause before he spoke again, and when he did, it felt like a punch to my gut. "I don't know what's going on between you and Rachel, but I need you to understand something. She's not the enemy here. I love her, Mom. I'm getting married, and I need you to accept that. I need you to accept her." My chest tightened. Accept her? How could I? How could he expect me to accept a woman who had manipulated him, who had used him for her own gain? The hurt that flooded through me was overwhelming, and I could barely hold it together. "James," I said, my voice breaking, "I don't want to fight, but you have to see what she's doing to you. I'm not just making this up. I have proof. "No, Mom," he interrupted, his voice now filled with frustration. "You don't get it. You're making this harder than it has to be. I'm trying to start my own life, and you're standing in the way. Rachel is everything to me, and if you keep attacking her, I don't know if I can keep doing this." The word stung. I'm standing in the way. After everything I had done for him, everything I had sacrificed, was I really the one causing the problem here? Was I the villain in his eyes? "James, please. You don't know what she's really like. I can't stand by and let you marry someone who doesn't care about you, who's using you." "You don't know her," he yelled, his voice rising. "You never gave her a chance. All you've done is tear her down, and I'm done with it. I'm done with you." I felt the ground shift beneath me, like the foundation of everything I thought I knew about my son was crumbling. My heart shattered into a million pieces as I heard the words I feared the most. "I can't do this anymore, Mom. If you don't want to accept Rachel, then I don't know if we can have a relationship." The phone call ended with the sound of him hanging up, and just like that, the world around me went still. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My son, the person I had raised, the person I had loved with every fiber of my being, had just told me he was done. Done with me, all for Rachel. I stood there, phone in hand, my body trembling with shock and sorrow. How had this happened? My mind replayed the words James had said, over and over, each time more painful than the last. "I'm done with you." How could I fix this? Was it even possible? I sat down, my legs giving out beneath me. I felt like I had lost everything in that one phone call. Not just my son's love, but the future I had envisioned for us, the family dinners, the holidays. All of it slipping away like sand between my fingers. But as the waves of sorrow crashed over me, something else started to rise up, a deep, burning anger. I had raised him to be better than this. I had sacrificed everything for him, and now he was throwing it all away for a woman who clearly didn't care about him the way I did. I wiped away the tears, anger mingling with the pain. I wasn't going to let this go, not like this. I grabbed my phone again and dialed Maggie. She answered on the second ring. "Linda, is everything okay? I saw you were trying to call earlier." "Maggie, I need your help," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I can't do this alone. James, he's made his choice and I can't lose him. But I can't just stand by and let Rachel destroy everything." "Linda, I'm so sorry. I know this is hard, but you're not alone in this. Let's get some more information about Rachel, something that will make James see the truth." I nodded, my resolve hardening. "I'm not giving up. I'll find a way to make him see. I'll fight for him, for us." That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with thoughts of what to do next, how to reach James, how to break through Rachel's hold over him. I knew I couldn't just confront him anymore. I needed to be strategic. I needed to expose Rachel for who she really was, and I couldn't afford to mess this up. The next morning, I went to the courthouse. I had a gut feeling there was more to Rachel's past that James didn't know about. I needed to dig deeper, and I had to be careful. As I entered the building, my heart was pounding in my chest. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to find, but I knew I had to do something. I sat down at the public records desk and explained I needed to look into certain legal filings for someone named Rachel Matthews. The clerk didn't even bat an eye as they started pulling up records. A few minutes later, a stack of files was placed in front of me. I flipped through the papers quickly, scanning for anything that could help me, and then I found it. There it was, a record of fraud charges from several years ago, involving a man who had been swindled out of his fortune. It wasn't just any case. The man had been left financially ruined, and Rachel had disappeared with him, leaving behind a trail of lies. The last name on the documents wasn't Rachel's, it was her former fiancé's. This was the evidence I needed. As I walked out of the courthouse, clutching the documents in my hand, I knew the confrontation was inevitable. But would James believe me? And what would Rachel do to keep him from seeing the truth? The storm was coming, and I had no idea what would happen next. But one thing was clear, I wasn't backing down. The weight of the documents in my purse felt heavier than ever as I sat in my car, staring at the courthouse in the rearview mirror. I couldn't believe what I had just uncovered about Rachel. Fraud, deception, how had I been so blind? How had James, my own son, been so oblivious to the woman he was about to marry? I had never felt more alone in my life. I wanted to go straight to James. I wanted to burst through the door and lay the evidence in front of him to make him see the truth. But the reality hit me hard. The truth wasn't something he was ready to hear. He was in love with Rachel, and love, especially blind love, makes us all do things we would never normally do. I had to be strategic. I had to be patient. If I confronted James too soon, he'd only push me away even more. This wasn't just about telling him what I knew. It was about breaking the hold Rachel had on him, a hold I could see growing stronger with each passing day. My mind raced with possibilities. How could I make James see? How could I show him that I wasn't just trying to tear him apart, that I was trying to protect him? And then it hit me. The answer was right in front of me. I needed help. I needed someone who could get through to James, someone he would listen to. But who could that be? Who could I trust to deliver the truth in a way that wouldn't make him shut down? Suddenly, it came to me. Maggie. She was the only one who had always been there for James, the only one who could get through to him. She knew him better than I did now, and if anyone could help me reach him, it was her. I couldn't do this alone. I dialed her number, my heart pounding as it rang. The minutes felt like hours. When she finally answered, I didn't waste any time. Maggie, I need your help. I have something big about Rachel. I have to show James the truth, but I can't do it alone. Will you help me? There was a pause on the other end. What's going on, Linda? What do you have? I hesitated, my throat tightening. I found evidence, Maggie. Evidence that Rachel isn't who she says she is. I don't know if I can get through to James, but I need you. I need you to help me make him see what she's doing to him. Maggie sighed, a deep sound that made my stomach churn. I've been worried about this, Linda. You know, I've always had my doubts about Rachel, but I didn't want to say anything unless I was sure. Now I'm sure. I'll help you. But we need to be careful. If Rachel finds out what you're doing, she's going to fight back harder than you can imagine. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I know, I'm ready. I just need to make James see. Maggie agreed to meet me the next day. We'd have to plan our next move carefully. But as I hung up the phone, I realized the truth. I wasn't just fighting for my relationship with James. I was fighting for his future, and it scared me to my core. The next morning, Maggie and I met at the local cafe, a quiet spot we used to visit when James was younger. As I walked in, I saw her sitting at a corner booth, her expression serious. She waved me over, and I took my seat, trying to calm the nerves building up in my chest. Okay, Linda, what's the plan? Maggie asked, leaning in close. I pulled out the documents I had gathered from the courthouse, the photos of Rachel's past life, the legal papers showing her involvement in multiple fraud cases. This is it. This is what she's been hiding. She's done this before, Maggie. She's used men for their money, and now she's doing the same thing to James. Maggie's eyes widened as she flipped through the papers. She let out a low whistle. I knew there was something off about her, but I didn't expect this. I nodded, my throat tight. I didn't either, but now I know. And I can't sit by and let her ruin James's life. We have to expose her before it's too late. Maggie looked at me, her gaze softening. You're right, but we have to be careful. You can't just go to James with this information. Rachel's been planning this for years. She's good at what she does, and she won't go down without a fight. I took a deep breath, my mind racing with thoughts of how to move forward. I know, but I've thought of a way we can get to her. We need to get Rachel alone. We need to confront her. And we need to do it before she can spin her lies. Maggie raised an eyebrow. How do you propose we do that? I leaned in, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll call her. She's been avoiding me, but I think I can lure her into a meeting. Once we have her, we confront her together. We show James the truth. He won't have any choice but to believe it. Maggie hesitated, her eyes scanning the room. It's risky, Linda. If we're wrong about this, it could destroy everything. We have to be sure that we're ready for the consequences. I nodded, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. I know, but I can't lose my son, not to her. Maggie reached across the table, placing a hand on mine. I'll help you. We'll do this together. For James, for you. That afternoon, I picked up the phone and dialed Rachel's number. My hands were shaking as I pressed the call button. I had no idea how she'd react, but I knew this was the only way forward. It was now or never. The phone rang twice before she picked up. Linda, she said, her voice laced with an icy calmness. What do you want? I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. I need to talk to you, in person. We can meet at the park near my house. I have something important to discuss. There was a long pause on the other end. What is this about? It's about James, I replied, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. You'll want to hear this. Rachel didn't say a word. I could feel the tension on the other side of the line, but she finally agreed. Fine, I'll meet you, but don't waste my time. I hung up the phone, my mind reeling with the enormity of what was about to happen. The confrontation was set, but would Rachel fall for my trap, or would she figure out what I was planning? As the sun began to set, I stood by my front door, waiting. My heart was racing, every nerve on edge. Maggie was waiting in her car across the street, ready to step in if things went south. I could feel the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on me. This was it. There was no turning back now. The sound of footsteps echoed in the distance, and I turned to see Rachel approaching, her face as cold and calculated as ever. She walked toward me, her heels clicking against the pavement, her expression unreadable. Linda, she said curtly as she stopped in front of me, what's so important? I took a deep breath, my hands shaking but my resolve firm. It's time for you to face the truth, Rachel. You can't keep hiding from it forever. She narrowed her eyes, her posture stiff. I don't know what you're talking about. But I wasn't backing down. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let her win. As I handed Rachel the folder with the evidence, the look in her eyes changed. It wasn't surprise or fear. It was something far worse. And as she glanced around, I knew something was about to happen that I wasn't prepared for. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Rachel's face went pale as she glanced down at the folder I had handed her. Her fingers hovered over the edges, as if she were afraid to touch the documents. For a brief moment, she hesitated, her usual composure cracking just enough for me to see the panic flicker in her eyes. She opened the folder, her hands shaking, and began flipping through the pages. Her eyes scanned the legal papers, the photos of her past, and the fraud charges that had once been buried under layers of lies. I could almost feel her heart racing from here. She was trapped, and she knew it, but I wasn't sure if she would give in or fight back with everything she had. Rachel's silence was deafening, and I could almost hear her thoughts racing. Was she wondering if she could talk her way out of this? Or was she trying to figure out how much damage I had already done? Whatever it was, I was ready to finally expose the truth. Rachel, I said, my voice steady but filled with an unshakable fury. You've been lying to my son, to our family, for far too long. You thought you could manipulate James and me, tear us apart, but I won't let you do it anymore. It ends here. Rachel slowly looked up at me, her face now a mask of cold defiance. "You think this will change anything?" she sneered. "James is mine. He'll always choose me over you. You're nothing but a nuisance." Her words hit me like a slap, but I refused to back down. I had come too far to let her have the last word. "No, Rachel," I said, stepping closer, the anger inside me burning hotter. "It's you who's the nuisance. You've been playing James, using him for your own gain, and now it's time for him to see you for who you really are." Her lips curled into a mocking smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You think you can tear us apart with some old papers? Do you really think James is going to believe you over me? He's not stupid, Linda." "I don't need to tear you apart," I replied. "You're already doing it on your own. I've seen the way you've manipulated him, the way you've isolated him from the people who love him. You've tried to make him choose between you and me, but I won't let you. I won't let you ruin his life." Rachel scoffed. "You don't get it, do you? I never had to force James to choose. He chose me all on his own, and he always will." I could feel the tension between us, the weight of every word we spoke pressing down on the air around us. It was like we were standing on the edge of a cliff, each of us waiting for the other to make the first move. "You've been lying to him, Rachel. He doesn't know the truth, but I'm going to make sure he does." I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. It was time to end this. I had no choice but to call James and tell him everything, all of it. I had to let him see the woman he was about to marry for what she truly was, and no matter how painful it was for me, I had to do it for him. Rachel's eyes narrowed as she saw me dial James's number. "What are you going to do, Linda? Call him and tell him all your little lies. He's not going to believe you. He'll never believe you over me." I ignored her, my finger pressing the call button. The phone rang once, twice, and then on the third ring, I heard his voice. "Mom," James sounded tired, strained. "What's going on? Why are you calling?" "James, I need you to listen to me," I said, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. "I have something I need to tell you, something you need to know about Rachel." Rachel stepped forward, her hand reaching out as if to stop me, but I moved away from her, focusing solely on James. "It's important. Please just hear me out." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear James breathing, but he didn't speak. I knew he was torn, confused. Part of him didn't want to believe me, didn't want to accept what I was about to say. But I had to say it, for his sake. "James," I continued, my voice breaking with emotion, "Rachel isn't who you think she is. I have proof. She's been manipulating you, using you for her own gain. She's done this before to other people, and now she's doing it to you." I heard a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line, followed by a muffled curse. I could almost picture James's face, the conflict warring within him. He wanted to believe me, but he didn't know how to. He had been so sure of his life with Rachel, so sure of his future. I couldn't just shatter that for him, but I couldn't stand by and watch him be destroyed either. "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about," James said, his voice shaky now. "Why would you say that about Rachel? She's been nothing but good to me. I don't understand." "You don't understand because she's been hiding the truth from you. She's been lying to you, James, and I can't stand by and let her tear you apart. I have the evidence, I have the proof. She's not who she says she is." I glanced over at Rachel, who was standing just a few feet away, her arms crossed, watching me with an expression of icy fury. She had to know I was serious. This was it. The truth was out, and there was no going back. "I'm going to send you everything," I said. "The court records, the photos, everything. I just need you to look at it. Please, you have to see for yourself." "Mom, I don't know if I can handle this," James replied, his voice breaking. "I need time, I need to think." I could feel the desperation in his words, but I knew there was no more time to waste. This was the moment where everything would change. Either he would see the truth, or I would lose him forever. "James, you need to decide now. Do you want the truth, or do you want to keep living in a lie?" I held my breath as I waited for his response. My entire body was trembling with fear and anticipation. Would he choose me? Would he choose the truth? Or would he walk away from everything I had tried to protect? Cliffhanger. There was a long silence. Then James spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "I'll look at it, Mom, but if this tears us apart, I don't know what I'll do." The days that followed were some of the longest I've ever endured. Every moment, every second seemed to stretch out endlessly as I waited for James to process everything I had sent him. I had emailed him the court records, the photos, the documents that revealed the truth about Rachel, everything I knew would make him see the reality of what she had been hiding from him. I had tried to call him every day, but each time I was met with silence. He didn't answer my calls, didn't reply to my messages. My heart sank with each passing hour. Had I done the right thing? Had I made the biggest mistake of my life by forcing him to see the truth? Or was I saving him from a future filled with pain and regret? I knew I had to give him space, but every instinct in me screamed that something was wrong. I hadn't heard from him in days, and my worry was growing. What if he was shutting me out forever? What if Rachel had convinced him that I was just trying to tear them apart? I couldn't sit by and wait any longer. I needed answers. I needed to know where James stood. So I did what I had been avoiding for days. I drove to his house. As I parked in front of his home, I saw the lights on inside. The house looked the same as it had before, all warm and inviting. The decorations were still up, remnants of a holiday that had promised so much joy. But the weight of the situation crushed me as I stood there, staring at the door. What was I going to say? What if he didn't want to see me? What if this was the moment I lost him forever? My heart was racing as I walked up the steps and rang the doorbell. The sound of footsteps echoed through the house, growing louder with each passing second. Then the door opened, and there stood James. His eyes were red, as though he hadn't been sleeping, and there was a heaviness in his expression that I'd never seen before. "Mom," he said quietly, his voice hoarse. "I wasn't sure if you were going to show up." I felt a lump form in my throat. He had every right to be angry with me, but the hurt in his eyes made it almost impossible to breathe. This wasn't how I envisioned us reconnecting. I wanted to hug him, to tell him everything was going to be okay, but I knew that wasn't possible yet. Not until he understood the truth. "James," I began, my voice trembling, "I'm so sorry for everything that's happened. But I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't stand by and watch you marry someone who was lying to you. I needed you to see the truth. I needed you to see her for who she really is." He stepped back and gestured for me to come inside. As I entered, I couldn't help but notice the tension in the air. It was thick, like the calm before a storm. Rachel wasn't here, thank God, but I knew she wouldn't be far behind. James led me to the living room, and I could feel my hands sweating as I sat down. I wasn't sure if I should apologize again or if I should just wait for him to speak. The silence stretched on, and I could hear my heart pounding in my chest. Finally, James broke the silence. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking, I don't know what to believe anymore." He paused, rubbing his eyes. "I saw the evidence you sent, and I don't know what to think." I leaned forward, my hands shaking as I looked at him. "James, please listen to me. Everything I sent you is the truth. I would never lie to you. Rachel is dangerous, and she's been using you for years. She's lied to you about everything, and I couldn't stand by and let her keep doing it." His eyes welled up with tears, and I could see the conflict in them. I knew he was torn. Part of him wanted to believe me, but another part of him didn't want to admit the truth. I had been in his shoes before. He was afraid of the pain that would come with realizing he had been wrong about someone he loved. I don't want to believe it," James whispered. "I don't want to lose her, Mom. I don't want to think that everything we've built together is a lie." I felt a pang of pain in my chest. I had spent years building my relationship with James, always being there for him when he needed me. And now, in an instant, it felt like everything was slipping away. "James, you don't have to lose everything," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But you need to see the truth. Rachel has been lying to you from the start. She's not the person you think she is." James ran his hands through his hair, packing back and forth. "I don't know, Mom. I just don't know. I love her. I thought she was the one. But now I feel like everything has been turned upside down. I don't know who to trust anymore." The pain in his voice broke me. My son, the person I had raised with so much love and care, was standing there, torn between me and the woman he loved. I could see the weight of the decision bearing down on him. He didn't want to lose me, but he didn't want to lose Rachel either. The choices were tearing him apart. I stood up, my heart aching for him. James, I've always been here for you, and I always will be. I'm not asking you to choose me over her. I'm asking you to choose the truth. Look at the evidence, look at who she really is, and make your decision from there. But don't let her control you, don't let her keep you in the dark. He turned to face me, his eyes red with unshed tears. I don't know if I can handle this, Mom. I don't know if I can believe everything you've said. I stepped forward, my voice soft but firm. You don't have to handle it alone. I'm here. You can handle this because you're stronger than you think, but you have to be brave enough to see what's right in front of you. James stood in front of me, his hands shaking. I could see the anger and confusion in his eyes, but there was something else there too, a flicker of realization. Slowly, he nodded. I'll look at it again, he whispered. I'll look at everything, but I need time. I need to think about this. I nodded, my heart swelling with a mix of hope and fear. This was the moment that could either tear us apart or bring us closer than ever. James stepped back, his face still conflicted. I need time, Mom, but don't think this is over. I need to figure out who I can trust. I'll come to you when I'm ready, but right now, I just don't know. As he walked away, I felt the weight of his words settle in. What if he never came back to me? What if Rachel won in the end? The days that followed were nothing short of agonizing. I spent every moment waiting for James to come around, for him to finally see Rachel for who she truly was. I had done everything I could to help him, to protect him, but there was still a part of me that feared he might never look at Rachel the same way again. And worse, what if he never looked at me the same way again? I had to stay strong. I had to hold on to the hope that James would come to his senses, that the love and trust we shared could pull him away from the dark cloud Rachel had cast over him. But as the days dragged on and I heard nothing from him, the fear started to creep in. Was it possible that I had lost him for good? Rachel, on the other hand, wasn't just sitting idly by. I could feel her presence in every conversation James and I had. Her shadow loomed over us. It was like she was constantly pulling at the strings, manipulating him in ways I could never fully understand. I had seen the change in him over the past few months, and I knew Rachel was behind it. She wasn't going to let go without a fight, and I had to be prepared for whatever she had in store. One afternoon, as I was sitting in my living room, my phone buzzed. I looked down and my heart skipped a beat. It was a text from James. We need to talk. Come to the house tonight. I felt a rush of relief, followed by a wave of dread. Was this it? Was he finally ready to see the truth? Or had Rachel managed to convince him that I was the one tearing their relationship apart? I didn't waste any time. I grabbed my coat and headed out the door, my heart pounding in my chest. As I drove toward his house, memories of our past, of the days when everything felt so simple and full of love, flooded my mind. I remembered James as a little boy, his eyes filled with trust and affection. How had we gotten here? How had everything come to this point? When I arrived at James's house, the door was slightly ajar. I knocked softly, and James's voice called from inside. Come in, Mom. I stepped inside, and immediately the tension in the air hit me like a wave. James was sitting on the couch, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. He looked tired, worn down by something I couldn't yet understand. Rachel wasn't there, and for that I was grateful. I didn't want this conversation to be tainted by her presence, by the constant manipulation I could feel hanging in the air whenever she was near. James, what's going on? I asked, my voice soft but filled with emotion. You've been distant and I'm worried. You've barely spoken to me since the last time we talked. Please just tell me what's going on. He looked at me, his eyes dark and tired, but there was something else there too, something I hadn't seen in him for a long time, doubt. It was fleeting, but it was there. Maybe, just maybe, he was starting to question everything. I've been thinking a lot, Mom, he said, his voice heavy with uncertainty. About what you said, about Rachel. I don't know what to believe anymore. My heart soared for a moment, only to be weighed down again by the fear that this wasn't going to end the way I hoped. I took a deep breath and sat down beside him. This was my chance, the chance I had been waiting for. "I know this is hard, James," I said gently, placing a hand on his. "But you have to see the truth. Rachel is using you. She's been manipulating you from the start, and I can prove it. Everything I've been telling you, it's all true." James pulled his hand away from mine, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I want to believe you, Mom, I really do. But I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know who to trust." I couldn't help it. The tears welled up in my eyes. I had raised him, loved him, supported him, and now I was losing him to someone who didn't care about him the way I did. "James, please, listen to me. I know it's hard, but Rachel is dangerous. She's done this before, and she's doing it again with you. You're not the first man she's used to get what she wants. She's lying to you. She's been lying to both of us." James didn't meet my gaze. "I love her, Mom. I can't just walk away from that." And just like that, the dagger struck. I love her. The words echoed in my mind, louder than anything else. It wasn't just about the lies anymore. It was about his love for her, the same love that had made him blind to everything else. His love for Rachel was stronger than his love for me, stronger than the years we had spent together as mother and son. "You don't have to choose between me and her," I whispered, my voice breaking. "But you do have to choose the truth. And right now, the truth is staring you in the face. You're going to lose everything if you keep ignoring it, James. I can't watch you destroy your life over her." He stood up suddenly, his face twisted with frustration and confusion. "I'm not destroying my life. You're the one making this so hard. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to make you happy, how to make Rachel happy. I'm so damn tired of feeling like I'm failing everyone." I stood up too, my chest tightening as I reached out for him. "You're not failing anyone, James. You're not. You just have to see what's right in front of you. You have to see the woman who's been manipulating you, controlling your life. You have to see her for who she really is." "I can't," he whispered. "I can't do this anymore, Mom." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. He couldn't do this anymore. He couldn't do this anymore. He couldn't fight for the truth, for me, for what we had. He was ready to walk away, and Rachel had won. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces as James turned away from me, walking toward the door. He was leaving. I had lost him. Just as he reached the door, he paused, his hand on the knob. For a moment, I thought he was going to turn around to come back to me. But when he spoke again, his voice was cold and detached. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I've made my choice." And with that, he was gone. I stood there, staring at the empty door, my body numb. The house felt empty, hollow, and silent. The very foundation of my life was crumbling, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I had lost my son, and it was all because of Rachel. As I sank to my knees, my heart aching with the weight of his words, the phone buzzed in my pocket. My hands shook as I pulled it out and saw the message. It was from James. "I made a mistake. I'll be over tomorrow. I need to talk." Was this my chance? Was he finally seeing the truth? I could hardly breathe as I stared at the screen of my phone. "I made a mistake. I'll be over tomorrow. I need to talk." The words were etched in front of me, but they didn't feel real. After everything that had happened, after hearing him say that he made his choice, now he was telling me he made a mistake. Was this some cruel joke, or was there really hope left? My heart was torn between disbelief and hope, and I had no idea which one was stronger. I thought I had lost him for good. I thought I had lost my son to the woman who had worked so hard to manipulate and control him. But now, here he was, reaching out to me, asking to talk. I stared at the message for what felt like hours, every part of me screaming to pick up the phone and call him back immediately. I was ready to beg, to plead, to tell him everything I had been holding back. But then I remembered, this couldn't be about me begging for him to come back. It had to be about him seeing the truth and wanting to see it. He had to come to this conclusion on his own. And if Rachel had any part in his decision to reach out to me, then I would have to be careful. I had to make sure he didn't fall back into her clutches. My mind raced as I replayed every conversation I had with James, every warning I had given him about Rachel. I had seen the way she manipulated him, how she always seemed to make everything about her. But now, it seemed like he was finally starting to see the cracks in her perfect facade. But would it be enough? The next day, the knock at the door came just as the sun was setting. I froze for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew it was him. This was the moment I had been waiting for, but I wasn't prepared for the rush of emotions that hit me all at once. I hadn't seen my son in days, and every second felt like it had stretched into eternity. I opened the door slowly, my hands trembling. There he was, standing in front of me, James. His face was tired, but there was something else there too. Guilt, regret, and maybe, just maybe, a flicker of the love I had always known he had for me. "Mom," he said quietly, his voice low and strained. He looked different, older somehow. The weight of everything that had happened seemed to be sitting on his shoulders, and I could see the toll it had taken. "I'm so sorry." I opened my arms before he could say anything else, and he stepped into my embrace. I held him tightly, feeling the warmth of his body against mine. But this time, something was different. The bond we once shared felt distant, like a thread that had been stretched too far. Would we ever get that closeness back? "I've been thinking a lot about everything," he continued, pulling away slightly to look at me. "About you, about Rachel, and about what's really been going on. I was so blinded by her, by everything she told me, that I didn't see the truth. But I see it now, Mom. I see everything." I felt a rush of relief flood through me, but it was mixed with fear. What if this wasn't enough? What if Rachel found a way to worm her way back into his life? "You were right, Mom," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "I've been so wrapped up in my own world and her world that I couldn't see what was happening right in front of me. I didn't want to believe it, but I can't ignore it anymore." His words brought me a comfort I didn't think I could feel again, but deep down I knew this wasn't over. The real test was still to come. Rachel wouldn't just let go of him that easily. She'd fight, and she'd fight dirty. But now, at least James was on my side. He had finally seen the truth. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he said again, his voice thick with emotion. "I should have listened to you. I've hurt you. And I can't take that back. But I promise I won't let her control me anymore." I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. "You don't have to apologize, James. I just want you to be happy, to be safe. And I want you to make your decisions based on what's best for you, not for someone who only cares about herself." He nodded, his eyes focused on the ground. "I've been a fool. I've been too proud, too stubborn to see the truth. But I'm done with Rachel. I'm done with her lies." For a moment, everything was perfect. It felt like I had my son back, like the pieces of our broken relationship were starting to fall back into place. But as I looked at him, I saw the fear in his eyes. The fear that he had just made a decision that would come with consequences. "What happens now?" I asked softly, my voice trembling. "What about Rachel?" James looked up at me, and for the first time in days, I saw a spark of clarity in his eyes. "I don't know, but I can't keep living a lie. I'm going to talk to her. I need to end things. It's the only way I can move on." The air between us seemed to thicken as the weight of his words settled over us. It wasn't going to be easy. Breaking up with Rachel wasn't going to be a clean, simple process. She was ruthless, manipulative, and used to getting her way. But I knew James was strong enough to face her, to finally make the hard decision he had been avoiding for so long. That evening, James left to meet Rachel. I couldn't stay at home, waiting for the fallout. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I had to trust that James would make the right choice. I drove around the city, not knowing where to go, my mind racing with possibilities. Could Rachel really let him go, or would she fight back, pulling him back into her web? When I returned home, hours had passed. The silence in the house was suffocating. The clock ticked louder and louder in the stillness, each second stretching into infinity. I knew that whatever was about to happen would change everything. Finally, my phone buzzed. It was a message from James. "I ended it, Mom. I told her everything. I'm free." My heart skipped a beat. The relief that washed over me was overwhelming. But as quickly as the relief came, a new fear settled in. If Rachel truly let James go, what would she do next? How far was she willing to go to regain control over him? I stood in the doorway, staring out at the night sky. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. Rachel wouldn't give up so easily. She would fight to keep her hold on James, and I had no idea how far she was willing to go. But for now, I had my son back, and that, for the moment, was enough. But as I stood there, staring out into the night, I received an unexpected knock at the door. My heart stopped in my chest as I opened it to find Rachel standing there, her face twisted in anger. She wasn't done yet. She had a plan, and she wasn't going to let James go that easily. What do you think Rachel is planning? Will she come after James with everything she has? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. You won't want to miss the final showdown.